First off, I want to say thank you so much for meeting with me. It's a true pleasure, and it's really cool. You're like a Lego celebrity and now a TV celebrity. So it's pretty awesome to meet you. And I know a lot of the viewers on my channel are going to be very interested in hearing what we have to talk about today. So it's pretty amazing.
Awesome. But I'm happy you're also able to make the time. So it should be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So I've come up with a bunch of questions for you. A lot of them have to do with the set, and also a lot of them have to do with you and, of course, Lego in general as well. So I know you've been with Lego for a long time, I think since 2006, right?
Yeah, 17 years, January 2nd. So coming up soon.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. You created so many different things, like in so many different categories, like the Emerald Knight, amusement park rides, modular buildings, and just like your resume is incredible. Can you tell us more about your role as a senior design manager at the Lego Group?
Yeah. So the cool thing is all those products that you just mentioned all fall under our adults category. So the boxes that you see, the black boxes with the 18 plus. And so I'm now responsible for a team of designers, which is awesome because all the cool stuff that I'm into, I now have a team of people that are also into them. And they're super talented that I can prompt an idea and then they run with it. And then they make something amazing and hopefully dazzle me and come up with something I never even thought was possible. So I think right now, what's cool is that where before I would put all my effort onto a single model and I would have that focus and that influence. Now I'm excited because I have dozens of products that I can influence and so many talented people that I can work with that we can bounce ideas off of each other. And then I don't have to worry about putting every brick down and building it myself because they're very capable and can often surprise me with things that are amazing. So it's having that influence over a lot of creative people and then trying to give them the vision and the guidance to just make stuff that hopefully Lego fans and adults around the world get excited by.
That's amazing that you've come so far that now you're like the lead of an entire category, and it's one of the most impressive categories, which is of course dealing with adults welcome and all that. So it's pretty amazing.
Cool. I can see you got our brand new Eiffel Tower behind you and the roller coaster. So you're one of our biggest customers, it looks like.
Yeah. I am. You can say that. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Is like our channel is mainly all Eiffels. We got so many different Eiffels that watch us, and I enjoy collecting a lot of the things that you help design and integrate them into the Lego room in the city and everything. So it's pretty amazing.
It's a happy place you have behind you.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're so involved at Lego. And I mean, it's obviously a lot of work to keep on top of all this. And recently, you've acquired a new job, which is being a judge and a TV star on Lego Masters. How has that affected your job at Lego, and how do you go about managing both positions?
It's actually surprisingly complementary in that my role here at work every day is to try to work with creative people and then give them feedback in order to better themselves and make things they didn't even know were possible. And so that's exactly what we do on Lego Masters, is we have amazingly talented people that we just create conditions and an environment to let them try things they never thought were possible and gain confidence that they can actually solve things they didn't even know that they were capable of solving and create things that nobody even thought were possible. So I actually love the two going side by side because I feel very comfortable in both spaces because it's what I love to do. As far as managing it, I'm very fortunate to have a great support team here. That the design team, many of them are quite seasoned and experienced, so when I'm away, they can step into the role a bit more. But I also have an associate lead, Andy, who designed the Jazz Club, and he's also my number two. He's my right-hand man that actually, when I'm away, steps in and takes even more of my role. But when I'm at Lego Masters, I have to say it's quite an intense experience. So I do actually kind of drop off the grid for a period of time. But before that, I definitely prompt and prep all the things for while I'm away. So I have a little bit of double duty going into Lego Masters and double duty coming out of it. Yeah. That I try to double my efforts and then catch up on everything. And then my year somehow normalizes. So it's a fun experience, but it definitely makes sure that my year is fully packed. And definitely there's a variety of things that I get to work with.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds challenging juggling both things. When you create Lego sets like the new modular building, the Jazz Club Pizzeria, are there any guidelines that are provided to you by Lego or a higher up within the company about, okay, we have to create a jazz club and a pizza, that's what your pizzeria, that's what you're tasked with, and that's what you have to create? Or is it sort of like you can create what you want because you're the lead of the department?
I feel very grateful that I've been here long enough and have built up enough credibility, so to speak, that I'm actually given quite a bit of free reign on the entire assortment of products that we do. And what's nice about that is then I can actually lean on the designers more to help influence the things that we're doing. So I'd say where I would have an influence is I'm actually probably the guy that you're talking about that could go in and say, make a jazz club. Choosing to do is inspire the designer like Andy, who did the jazz club. I gave some broad strokes as far as this is going to be it's a mid model following up on the hotel. I want the minifigures to have a place to go to have fun. This should be a place that when you're staying at a hotel, why are you staying at a hotel? Because it's something to go to. There's an experience that you should be having. So I can start to direct him in a way to start exploring things. And then he comes back with ideas. And I love the co-creation aspect of it, that then we can loop with the design team and start to talk about which stories start to make sense, which ones allow us to create new characters or have a new style of architecture or colors. And you start to create a balance of things that just start to formulate, but it all kind of starts from a little bit of guidance without being overly prescriptive. And I do think there are moments that I will tell a designer for other models where I'm like, this is the year that we should be making a Ford Mustang because of this reason, that reason. Mm-hmm. And now they have a clear, okay, I'm making a Mustang. I don't have a chance to explore several cars. But there are other models like the modular that I think designers really love because it's so open-ended. It's an opportunity to just create. And so I never want to take that away from the designers when there's so many other things that we do as designers that are prescriptive, that have a reason that we would do that because there's an event or an anniversary or it's part of something bigger. This is just one of those that I really enjoy seeing where the designers want to take it themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's probably why there's still this list of designers that are trying to someday do their modular building. Because when they finally get there, they have these ideas. What's missing on the street? We should totally do this. We should do that. And I've already been working on this Windows thing, and now I can put it in. And, you often find that they bring a lot already that then I just have to help make sure it's hitting the DNA of the line and making sure that it ties it to all the things that people expect and look forward to.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's like when I see the Jazz Club Pizzeria, I sort of see a lot of different modular building designs almost in that model. For example, I see the fire brigade because of the color red and the light gray accents. And then I also sort of see the police station because there's two different building facades at different levels. And then also it sort of gives me like the Palace Cinema, because you got the same sort of signage. So that you can see that they're sort of working together and creating similar design styles that are drawn in from different buildings. And I think that's really cool that the modular buildings, there's so many different ones now that they sort of have synergy and you can tell different stories from all of the different modular buildings. I think that was really cool. And I noticed that all over the instruction manual that, they got this instrument from the assembly square and they got this piece of art from El Cubo art gallery. I thought that was really neat how that you're able to tell so many different stories among all the different modular buildings. When these designers build them, so like you were saying, obviously there's the boutique hotel and you wanted a place for entertainment. Do they put them side by side and test them side by side as they're sort of creating them?
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have the whole lineup here. So I always encourage them to take the different buildings and move them around and see how it looks in any combination. Of course, you always want to think of the back of the box where we try to show the last two and bring them together. As a starting point, I look at those as the bookends almost, like use these as your starting point, but then feel free to bring other buildings in where you want to influence. And I think with Andy in particular, he had done the 15th anniversary modular building, the boutique hotel. So he did a lot of desk research to kind of catch up on all the little things he could bring into it to make those connections. And I think, as you mentioned, you can clearly see how it's influenced him, because now he just sees the street as a series of these connections that you can continually build on. And I love that. And I hope that we can continue to do that, because it is meant to be this snapshot of life that is just happening. It's not like it's a sequential story of things that are going on. It is just, this is a forever imaginary place that could be anywhere in the world with endless creativity, but there's just all these connections. And so I like that he's taking advantage of that, but he's also in this one planting seeds for future stories that we can also then link to and connect. I just think it just shows the endless possibilities of the street.
When Andy and your team are designing these sets, do they use software, physical bricks, or is it a combination of the two?
It varies from designer to designer, but they always need to have a physical model and a digital model.
Okay.
Some will choose to do digital first, and some will choose to do bricks first. I think Andy's one of those that's quite capable, that he's switched back and forth. Strangely, he can actually be quite capable to make digital models, and then he just brick builds them. When he needs to almost get something out in a hurry, the digital is the faster. But with the modular building in particular, you often can benefit from having the physical bricks, because a lot of it is flipping them around, seeing relationships with other bricks, starting to create those happy accidents of things that come together to make something different. And so that's where it's definitely not anything that we tell them you have to build it first with bricks. It just happens with this type of a concept. I think there is a value to getting those bricks early, because a single detail or item can influence a whole style of architecture.
Are there designs in the architecture styles ever influenced by real life source material? Do they ever look at a real building and say, oh, I want it to look like this building, and design it based on that?
Yeah, I think Andy mentioned for this one that he was highly inspired by Chicago and New York style buildings. So I think he's definitely had a degree of exploration in that space. For myself, when I used to build the modular buildings, strangely, I was influenced by a lot of buildings around me when I traveled to Boston, Copenhagen, Paris. I'm one of those tourists that isn't so much going to tourist attractions as much as I just want to take pictures of all the buildings around me. Yeah. Because there's always some detail that stands out that I'm just like, oh, I would love to make that someday. It could be a handrail, or it could be just a window treatment, or so I have the worst vacation photos that nobody wants to see, because they're just close-ups of different things.
Different things you want to build in Lego.
Yeah, I have a sense that Andy also has a bit of an eye for that he is drawn to some of those details that, like, as soon as he said the jazz club, he's like, I have an idea of the building already because of these other buildings I've seen.
Very cool. That's awesome. In regards to the minifigures, how do they go about creating the minifigures? Are there any restrictions in regards to coming up with new printed elements for those minifigures?
In the early days, we had more restrictions because it was a little bit of an unproven concept. So that's why you'll actually see minifigures in the early days that were just blank. It was twofold. One is we didn't have those. We chose as a company to not put the decorations on these types of products. But also at the time we said, well, if it's blank, it could be anything. It's part of that open-ended creativity. Okay. So we tried to spin it as a positive. But over time, we started to realize that the detailing level of the building had grown to such a high level, the minifigures had to keep up. And so if they're not printed and decorated in nice ways and have nice wigs, they start to look a little bit out of place, like they're zombies or mannequins or something. So I think we have really evolved that now we have a full-time graphic designer just connected with our adults team that loves pushing us to, like, he hears jazz club, he's like, oh, I'm already on it. I got these characters in mind that I can create. And then he talks to Andy and they go back and forth. And I think it's that collaborative effort of what stories does Andy want to take, what comes to mind for the graphic artist, and then they start to decide how many characters they want to invest the effort in, because he still has that limited number of color changes or decorations he can do. He then has to decide, is it more important to get a new torso for a minifigure or to get a nice soft yellow brick that makes a whole building come to life? That's where we're constantly doing that trading game of decoration versus new brick colors.
And will there ever be non-yellow minifigures in modular buildings?
I would say, who knows? I think I just don't try to anticipate where we're headed in the future too much, because I really want to just work with the best of what we have now and really, maximize it. I mean, the two dots and a smiley face made it all the way to Assembly Square. You know, we at that time would have said, no, it's always going to be this. But then we saw an opportunity that we're telling stories of a dentist. And how do you tell that? Wouldn't it have been great in that model if we had, you know, a mouth, like tell more stories, and we had gone more to story direction? So Assembly Square is the last one to just have the two dots and a smiley face, but it was because of the dentist story that we really are like, you know, that would have been so cool to just make that face. And so after that, we started to embrace this idea that it could change, which means for me, you know, the yellow minifigure is right now our generic representation of you can be anything. Yeah. And as long as we keep that open-ended creativity in the concept, I am totally open to see where things go in the future.
Okay. One thing that I noticed about modular buildings as of late is they are like treated as almost prestigious products because they get all print pieces. Whereas I've seen other prestigious projects like the roller coaster and the Bugatti that come with stickers. Yeah. And I'm wondering why modular buildings are treated as such. Why do they get all print pieces but other large expensive sets don't?
I think it was a very early decision that we made that these buildings should be totally open creativity. And I know I'm overusing that a bit, but what that means is if you have a sticker on a brick, it's really hard to reuse that brick several ways over, because the sticker actually adds a depth and a thickness that you can't build it into everything without it potentially hitting something. Whereas a decoration is clean and smooth. And so we already in the past were trying to avoid decorations as much as possible when we would do brick build signs and things. But then we saw the value of when we do need something graphical besides the Palace Cinema. But that's when we decided, let's do it as a decoration. And I think it's just because it's much easier to use those elements again and again. And we know the modular buildings are attractive not only as a building themselves, but as a parts pack. They should have lots of great colors and pieces and new shapes and all those things that hopefully encourage people to actually take them apart and build something else. And then when you're doing that, there's an advantage to having the printed elements.
I know this started back in 2007 with Cafe Corner. One thing that I've always had a question about is why is it dark gray sidewalks rather than light gray? I've retiled all mine in the city to light gray, and I know they all have to be the same now and you can't change it. But what was the original deciding factor on that?
I guess it could have been either way, but if I'm not mistaken, without looking it up, does the Cafe Corner have a gray foundation? Because that might have been, we didn't want the foundation to bleed into the sidewalk. Okay. And it could have been as simple as that specific building benefited from the dark gray to help the light gray stand out. And then it ended up influencing the entire line. It's a little bit like the light post. It was just a decision to add a light post. Yeah. And then we realized, oh, this is now the standard light post for 17 years of buildings. Yeah. I think we didn't quite at that time have that, oh, wow. Yeah, some of these decisions now will be forever. We thought it was just the modular connection points, but then we didn't realize some of these other fundamental things are harder to change once you commit to it early. Yeah. So now we just maintain it. But it's a fair point, but I think it does allow at least that flash of brightness on the edging. Yeah. That at least keeps the minifigures safe from wandering into traffic.
Yeah, there you go. So I noticed two new pieces. I'm wondering if I missed any. There's one in the wood-burning stove. It's like almost like a curved wheel well almost, and also the double base. Are those the two new pieces?
I think there's also a newish piece that might have been overlooked, which is this this little half-round jumper plate. Yeah, that's also quite useful. So it's definitely in other sets, but it's one that we were super excited to try to incorporate into this.
So I know we're running low on time. I got one more question that I think a lot of people are wondering about. We've gotten other services like police and fire. Will we ever get a hospital in modular building?
I think anything's possible. The main thing that we're always trying to think of is how do we keep surprising you guys and keeping things fresh without it becoming, oh, now we're going to get this, now we're going to get that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also trying to think of what makes sense on a downtown street.
For sure.
So whatever we're going to put on that street, we're going to think of it with our own twist of, yeah, this is the modular interpretation of it. So I definitely could see opportunities for more services, but I'm just happy that we were able to do the police station and the fire station already, especially the police station, because that was a tough one to have an icon for. The fire station comes pretty clear. You know, if you do a dark red building with a garage door, you're pretty safe. People know it's a fire station. But when you're thinking about what's a police station, that was a little bit harder to get an icon for. And then if you're thinking about a hospital, it's another one that, without being in a modern context, what's a classic old world hospital that's decodable? Yeah, it's a fun challenge, but I would definitely say we love those types of challenges.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering all the questions today. I appreciate it. And it was awesome meeting you, and it's incredible. Thank you you had awesome, amazing answers for all of my questions. So I really appreciate it.
I'm happy we got through them all. Normally I can be a little bit long-winded, but it was a real pleasure talking with you. And I look forward to seeing that collection growing. Is it even possible to grow any more? Like, I'm just trying to think of where do you go from here?
Yeah, like this is just the far end of the room, but it spans the entire basement that way too. So yeah, it's I'm always growing and changing and
I love
sort of
that.
working on my custom stuff. That's what I got to get working on, is a little bit more of that. But it's so fun. So I enjoy collecting it all and just and building a really neat display. So
it's fantastic. But I definitely would encourage you. It looks great.
So, thank you.
Well, pleasure meeting you, Jordan, and have a great night.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you. Okay.
Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.